Hi, Mr. Ko here, and today's topic is multi-step inequalities. And our goal for today is we're going to solve multi-step inequalities, and our California standards for today is 5.0. Alright, so here we have a nice little sequence chart of the basic steps to solve any type of multi-step inequality. So it starts out with distributed property, then it goes on to combining like terms, then we need to make the variables on one side only. Then once you're done with that, you should end up with a two-step equation, in this case, two-step inequality, and then solve a one-step inequality, and then of course you get to graph it. Alright, let's start with the first one. So our first one is solving inequalities by combining like terms. So we're going to go ahead and combine first, and I'm going to go ahead and circle the two things that I have in common. So the two things I have in common is that one right there and that one right there. And they're in common because they have similar variables and similar exponents on that variable. Since there's no exponent, you have to assume that it is 1. So we're going to combine these two first. That's going to give me 3 less than, and it's a negative 5 and a positive 2, which will give me negative 3n. Because if I add negative 5n plus positive 2n, it's going to give me negative 3n. Alright, our next step here, so we're done, we're combining, so we've combined that. Next up is to isolate this variable. So we're going to isolate this variable by using the inverse operation. So I'm going to divide this, because that's multiply, do the opposite. Divide by 3. Divide this side by negative 3. Okay. Negative 3 over negative 3 becomes 1. 1 times n will leave me with n. 3 divided by negative 3 gives me negative 1. Now, the very special thing that happens here is that when you divide or you multiply by a negative number using doing your inverse operation, that sign switches. So this sign right here becomes what used to be less than is now going to be greater than. So now it's going to be n is less than negative 1. Negative 1 is greater than n. Okay? Alright, let's do another one. Oops. Forgot to graph. So let's graph that out. So here I have a basic rudimentary graph, and I'm just going to go ahead and put negative 1 right here in the middle, put 0 right here, and put negative 2. Now, most people just kind of look at the arrow and go, okay, that's the part that you shade. But I want you to make sure that you understand what this expression is asking you. So first of all, we've found our negative 1. Let's go ahead and draw a open circle right here. And we check to see if it is a open circle or if it's a closed circle, depending on if it's equal to or not, or just less than or greater than symbol. Since it's just that remains open. Now I'm going to look at it and go, okay, n is less than negative 1. So I got to figure out what numbers are less than negative 1, and that's my answers for what n can be. So all the numbers that are less than negative 1 are actually to the left. Alright, so every single number past here is going to be my answer of n. Alright, how about solving inequalities by distributed property? So here we have this problem right here. And some of you guys are asking, well, why don't we just do negative 3 minus 6 first? Because, well, you still have to follow your order of operations. Here you have your negative 6 multiplied by the quantity of 4x plus 6. So we have to do that first, just because you got to do multiplication first. So here I'm going to go ahead and distribute. So we're going to distribute this here first. But I want you to make sure that you are distributing all that. So you're distributing the minus sign and that 6 into this. So that's going to give me a negative 24x. And I'm also going to distribute the minus sign, that 6, into this, which now makes it a negative 36. And then I'm going to bring down everything else that I did not work on, including that negative 3. Alright, my next step here is I'm going to go ahead and see if I have anything that I can combine. And if you look at it, I have a negative 3, and I have a negative 36 that I'm going to combine. So I'm going to go ahead and combine those two, and those two combined together will give me negative 39, because negative 3 and negative 36 gives me negative 39, and then of course negative 24x greater than negative 111. Alright, my next step here is we're going to isolate this variable, and in this case this is a two-step inequality, so I'm going to have to go and do 2 steps before I can actually finally get that variable on its own. So we're going to go and isolate that. So let's go and start off with our constant, which is an add number or a subtracted number. So I'm going to add here, because remember this is minus 39. I'm going to add here, and I'm going to add 39 here. Negative 39 plus 39 gives me 0. I now have negative 24x is greater than, and then if I add these guys together, I'm really actually subtracting them because one's a negative, one is a positive. So that's going to give me 11 minus 9, that's 2. That's going to give me 10, that should be 7, and then that's what gave me that answer right there. So my answer is going to be 72, and then I need to make sure that I kept the sign of that larger value because I have more negatives than I do positives. Alright, our next step here becomes now a one-step inequality, and I need to get rid of that negative 24. To do that, I'm going to divide because that's the inverse operation. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 24. That gives me 1. 1 times x is x. This gives me a positive 3, because 72 divided by 24 is 3. And a negative divided by negative is a positive. And then finally, because I am dividing by a negative number on both sides, I need to switch that sign from greater than to less than. Last step, I'm just going to graph this out. So I'm going to have 3, 4, 2. I'm just going to go ahead and put a open circle here on 3 because that's just a less than symbol. X is less than 3, so I just got to figure out what numbers are less than 3. So since 2 is less than 3, then I know everything past here is going to be able to fit in this particular expression. Alright, third one, solving inequalities with variables on both sides. Notice I have a variable here and a variable here. So I need to go ahead and make sure that I have variables on one side. So I'm going to isolate first. So knowing that if I were to subtract 8a here to subtract 8a here, I'm going to have a negative number. I'm going to choose to subtract a from this side and subtract a from this side because I'm going to be left with a 7a here, positive. So let's rewrite. So I have negative 6 is less than or equal to 15 plus 7a. Alright, the next step here, I have this, which is a two-step equation. I need to get rid of my constant, which is 15. Subtract 15 from both sides. When I subtract them, 15 minus 15 is 0, and that's leaving me with 7a on this side. Negative 6 minus 15 gives me negative 21, and then this becomes a one-step inequality. I'm going to undo 7 times a by dividing both sides. Don't forget it's in the equality property. That's going to be a. Because I'm dividing by a positive number, my sign stays the same, so I don't have to switch, and then this becomes negative 3. Alright, so now let's go and graph this out. I have negative 3, negative 2, negative 4, and I'm going to look for a negative 3. I'm going to put a circle first, and then I'm going to look and see, do I need to fill it in? And because it's equal, that means I do have to fill it in, so it's a solid dot. Then I'm going to go and look at it and go, okay, my answers are going to be in A. A has to be larger or greater than negative 3. So I'm looking for the numbers that are greater than negative 3. Well, the answers of negative 2 and negative 1 and 0 and 1 and everything else on this side is going to be larger than negative 3. Alright, here is another solving inequality. This time you have variables on both sides, you have distributive property on both sides. I'm not sure if you have any combining like terms, but let's go ahead and go through it. Okay, first of all, you have negative 2 times a quantity of 5 plus 6n. That's going to give us negative 10 plus, oops, because it's a negative times a positive, it's minus 12n. Then that is less than We can multiply that out. 6 times 8 is 48, positive. And then minus 12n. Alright, let's keep going. Our next step here is, because we have variables on both sides, we're going to go ahead and make sure that it only has one of them. So I'm going to go ahead and just add 12n here. I'm going to add 12n here. What you notice is that they both kind of go away, because negative 12 and positive 12 gives me 0, negative 12 positive 12 gives me 0, so all I'm left with here is negative 10 is greater than 48. I'm sorry, negative 10 is less than 48. And so what you have here is you have this answer, which is this true? And the answer is yes. So no matter what you put into the n, you'll always get this type of answer where it's always true. So the answer for this is going to be called all real solutions.